Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Just a Recording Podcast. I am your host, Patrick Moen. Thanks for tuning in this week. We got a great episode coming at you today. If you are interested in entrepreneurship, if you are interested in having a growth mindset, if you love business, if you love just geeking out and vibrating at a higher level with another individual, then you are just going to have to stay tuned and listen to this episode because it is full of gems. This week's guest is Christian Vegas Hampton, who is somebody that I had met when I first came to Raleigh, North Carolina, and really just kind of started to develop a great bond with this brother. We have continued to work together and help each other on several initiatives to really just push each other to be better and to do better. So what I want you to do before you give this episode a listen, anywhere that you go ahead and download your podcast, if you can, go ahead and leave me a 5-star rating. Give me some feedback, whether it's good or bad. I want to know what you think about the podcast and the content that I'm putting out. And if you're really enjoying these episodes, do me a favor, screenshot the episode and go ahead and share it via social. Make sure you tag Just a Recording Pod on the gram. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Peace. We are live. So I'm sitting here with a really good friend, somebody that's kind of really become a partner in a lot of business and entrepreneurship, self-development, and all the things that we talk about, from morning routines to living your best life on a day-to-day basis, from journaling to meditating to hot and cold therapy. And you've been a huge impact on my life just in the last 6-7 months. So this person is I've met him when I first moved to Raleigh as the Raleigh Renaissance crew. You may remember him from episode number 2, Just a Recording with a Conversation with 5 Guys. Let me introduce to you Mr. Christian Vegas Hampton. Say what's up.
What's up? How's it going?
So I feel like we have so many things to unpack, and let's kick it off and really kind of get into. So first I want to talk a little bit about how you and I met. So we met at the Raleigh Renaissance kind of communion. For those of you who don't know what that is, we got together for Christian's birthday, and it was basically like 22, 21 guys that just kind of really got together, and nobody really, a couple people knew who each other was. And after the meeting happened, and it was basically just everyone introducing themselves, talking about their story, a little kind of blip of who they are and what brought them to Raleigh and what brought them to that meeting, was you and I kind of caught up in like a little bit of a pod, and we really just started to kind of like volley back and forth, just spitting some truth. And I remember just like thinking some of the things that you were saying were so prolific and just so, they like hit me in my core, and I was like, man, this fucking guy gets it. And so I was just enamored in who you were. And you know, obviously I hate to use this as a term of identifying somebody, but you're young, like really young.
24.
Yeah. And you are such an old soul, though, and your development, you know, like we even talked about this in a conversation with 5 Guys, is like there's parts of me that are like, man, if I was Vegas's age, what if? And then I'm like, no, I've had some really great experiences. I've had some really great failures that have taught me some valuable lessons. So anyway, we kind of sidetracked a little bit, but that's kind of how we met.
Yeah, that initial meeting was awesome. And I even remember before we actually went upstairs, you at the register, and you were just looking super fly.
Oh, thanks, man.
Like everything, you could tell he wasn't from Raleigh.
I hear that so much.
And I took it upon myself to introduce myself, and immediately kind of like felt the soul connection.
Yeah.
And you had told me just right off the bat that you were fresh out of the plane, basically from LA, and just kind of getting a new start. And I was like, what an epic way to get a new start with this Raleigh Renaissance thing. And I think it said a lot about you, because a lot of the guys in that room had been building some of the relationships with Christian and company for years before they got invited to a room like that.
Yeah.
And I think, your energy and who you are just kind of got you there, got you a seat, because of, your vibe and your frequency, which I thought was amazing. And then, I remember afterwards, between me, you, and Gianni,
Right.
dude, we were just like...
We were just spitting some... Man, we were just spitting some truth, and just some of the things that everyone was saying. But so let's start to unpack a little bit of who this person that you are is, and kind of, you've been to a lot of self-development events. You've been to a lot of just things that really raise the vibration of the human spirit, and I think that it's pretty beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about where you're from, your childhood, and kind of what set you on this path of this entrepreneurship, self-development journey that you've been on that's really kind of created this incredible human being.
Thanks, man. So growing up, I moved around a lot. I went from being born in Puerto Rico, moving to California, to Venezuela, exchanging main languages from English to Spanish multiple times before 7, moving to Florida, Missouri, and then North Carolina. And so at a young age, I had to figure out the idea of connecting with human beings.
Right.
And not being lonely, because a lot of times my moves would come in the middle of school year. It would come, after developing these strong relationships with friends. And it also kind of led me down a path of detaching from relationships in a lot of ways, and I'm sure we can get to that, some trauma from my upbringing.
We all got it.
But I had to learn how to make friends,
Yeah.
And I think that led to a lot of the emotional intelligence and social intelligence that I kind of gained at a young age. A lot of my confidence that I gained came in Missouri. I will have friends and experiences from 6th to 9th grade there that I shared with people that I'll never forget. And it was in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. It's this little town in the boot heel of of Missouri. And you would never think that there's anything to do there, and you'd be right. But the people there were amazing, man.
Yeah.
I met some incredible people. I met my best friend there, and my best friend Chad, he was the it guy. Everyone loved this kid, and I just happened to be able to get introduced to him right off the bat, and we really took a liking to each other. And he started to introduce everyone to me, and he's like, "This is the new kid. They call him Chico." That was my nickname in middle school.
Yeah, Chico.
And it just caught, man. It caught, and I made a lot of friends really quickly. In 6th grade, I ran for student body president when I'd known people there for maybe 2 weeks. Won. And didn't lose a student body presidency until I moved away from Missouri.
Wow.
And when at a young age you're put in a position of social leadership and a social hierarchy of popularity, I think you automatically just become a leader in a lot of ways, because people look up to you and you can feel it and you know it.
Yeah.
And I didn't. Of course, I'm not processing these things and knowing these things as I'm going along, but in reflection, it's easy to see where maybe a lot of my confidence and my ability to connect with people came from, and put myself out there. And then I moved to North Carolina midway through 9th grade, and this is when shit hit the fan a little bit, and I lost a lot of my identity, because I'll never forget this. It's a funny story. I came into, it's the first day of school. It's the end of first semester in 9th grade at Wake Forest, Rollsville. And I'm wearing skinny jeans and a long sleeve yellow Abercrombie sweater. No one wears Abercrombie in North Carolina. It was the shit in Missouri, but no one wears it in North Carolina. I didn't know. I didn't care. I was going to wear the thing that like helped me stand out the most, my bright yellow Abercrombie sweater.
Mm-hmm.
I have like the swoopy Justin Bieber hair. I walk into 9th grade, and the teacher introduces me like he'll be auditing our classes. He's a new student here. Give him a warm welcome. And I'll never forget this. I sat down. I was starting to unpack my stuff, and I hear a voice behind me. It was like, "Yo, is this dude gay?" And I turned around. I was like, "Oh shit! I can't let that go because everyone's gonna think it." And like, dude, like that was like the thing for like the first week of school, that everyone just thought it was the new gay kid at school. Nothing, I guess, wrong with that, but I didn't like it.
Right.
I was like, dude, I gotta like work on my reputation here, and it was an uphill battle right from the beginning. And it was funny, man. I started to deny the status quo in a lot of ways, and I saw the popular kids, and I was like, I don't need to be that. And I identified with a lot of the gamers, and a lot of like there was a crowd that would go outside during lunch and just eat lunch like on the ground, like in a circle. And it was like all the hipsters of the crowd, and so that was a really unique time for me because I got to identify with something else other than being like Mr. Popular at my school. I got to be like Mr. Nobody with really good friends. I'll never forget 2 months after I'd moved there, in March, it was my birthday. And one of the girls that I'd met did one of the nicest things that anyone had ever done for me. She threw me a birthday party like in one of my classes. And it brought me to tears because I was like, dude, I have real friends here. And it might be just 5 or 6 friends, but they're real.
Yeah.
I love these people. So North Carolina was a unique experience. As me growing up was pretty standard, to be honest. Really sheltered upbringing. My parents were amazing, incredible parents that let me make my own choices in a lot of ways, and let me lead my own path and dress myself for school at a young age, and choose my own sports. And do whatever it was that I wanted to do, and would just kind of encourage me. And there was little to no trauma with my parents and the way that they brought me up, besides my dad just being a hard ass, making me do chores, which I thank him for,
Yeah, right.
And, I got brought up with a very conservative mindset. I'll never forget when I was 4th grade, I got sat up in front of a whiteboard like this, and before even I got my sex talk, I got the politics talk. There was like, this is the left and this is the right. This is what the left believes in. This is what the right believes in. What do you believe in? And I was just, and the way that he framed it made it seem like conservatism was the way to go. And I was like, I should have freedom to make my own choices. Screw the government. So at a young age, I kind of really identified with that. And I told my parents from a young age, I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to go to state school and get it done. And then I'm going to get a really nice job and then work myself up, just like you, Dad. He worked for Procter & Gamble and, graduated top of his class as a mechanical engineer. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps in a lot of ways. And then 18 came, and things completely changed for me. And this is the huge turning point in my life, which was starting to room with Hans at NC State. I was actually technically commuting from home, but I was friends with Hans and his roommate, and so I would sleep on the ground with like a blanket and a pillow on like a tile ground in a dorm some nights, just so I didn't have to drive all the way back home when I was going to NC State.
Wow. How long of a drive was it?
It's like a 45-minute drive, so it was worth it to me.
Yeah.
A couple things happened at 18. I started selling Cutco knives, and I started learning about sales and what it meant to pick up the phone and earn your own income based off of your own efforts, and not what somebody was paying you on an hourly rate, but like what you could produce in a week or in a month.
If you didn't work, you didn't make money.
Exactly. So I learned that happened at 18. It was very important. Another thing that happened was that my dad told me he wasn't going to pay for my school, and he wasn't going to be taking out the loans in his names. So I knew that meant loans were in my name, and I have little to no support when it comes to this. So if I want to go to school, I got to make it happen. He gave me some support with some programs he did, and he was always there, but he really put the ball in my court. And so it gave me a lot of appreciation for money, and especially for the money that I was putting into tuition. I mean, I was dropping $6,000-8,000 at 18 to go to school a semester.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
And so I learned how to work during school. Another thing that happened at 18 is that I figured out that I hated calculus, and I didn't want to be an engineer.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the path for me, and that I actually really liked the feeling that I got when I made a sale, and I started to kind of follow that feeling. And then the last thing that happened at 18 that was just huge for me was that me and Hans became really good friends, and and he introduced me to Michael Valor, and we started to become good friends. And the times that I had with Hans and Mike in his Youngsville home, like 50 minutes north of NC State's campus, we would drive up to go hang out with Mike and to just talk. And we would talk about the craziest things, man.
Right.
And he started to completely change my paradigm as to what was possible for a couple reasons. The questions he asked, the beliefs he had, and the beliefs he had in himself, I thought were radical, to say the least, especially with the kind of like sheltered and conservative mindset that I had. I mean, I'll never forget a full-on, blown-out like argument we had with aliens or with our government and conspiracy. And I would say things like, why would my government lie to me? You know, if aliens really existed, why, you know, and you know, I'd had very sheltered in a lot of ways, thoughts and beliefs about these things. And Mike just like was so insistent on just breaking the paradigm, breaking the way that I was thinking. And then he started to talk about himself and how he believed himself to be somebody that could be president one day, and that he was going to own all these companies and bring countries together and do all these things. We're 18.
Right.
And I'd been thinking about being an engineer for some company. And I was like, dude, if this guy is thinking on this level, what can I do?
Yeah.
What am I capable of? You know? And when you start asking yourselves, and that's what it was, I was just asking myself paradigm shifting questions at a young age when I was still very malleable.
Right.
And I started to believe myself. And I started to believe, well, if I met Mike, that's for a reason. Maybe I should be working with Mike. And so from, you know, a lot of the self-development and the entrepreneurial stuff that came up was through the businesses that we started late 18, January of 2014. Moved out of my place. I didn't want to commute anymore, so we got an apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment for 3 people. Me and Hans split a big room. It was in like one of the worst spots off Varsity Street. This disgusting apartment complex that literally smelled like dog at all times, no matter what we did, and super run down. The freaking garbage disposal and the sink would break down all the time, and I'd have to literally scoop crap. It was so bad, man.
Yeah.
It was so bad. We were paying like $300 a month in rent, though, and those were the times that things really started to change, because we got into business for ourselves. We started a company called Average Joe Promo, where we started to sell digital marketing and like SEO and website building services. And we went out and started making cold calls and walking into restaurants and businesses and started to pitch ourselves. And looking back, well, at the time, I thought it was completely normal that I was going out there doing this, and I was so confident in how I did this. But now, when I talk to an 18-year-old and he tries to tell me anything, I'm like, dude, what are you even talking about? Like, go back to school.
Right.
But I can't, because like then I think about, holy shit, I was 18, putting myself out there telling 45-year-old men and women, business owners, that they needed to listen to me when it came to the digital marketing.
Right.
And that was, it was a lot of things that led to me having to grow up really quickly and kind of get that old soul very quickly, because right around that time when you start your own business, you start having to manage and hire people.
Right.
And I was interviewing people that were twice my age. And, I was telling people what to do that were twice my age. And I had to do it gracefully. I had to do it professionally. I had to do it, with tact and like all these things that you would typically learn in your late 20s and 30s. I was 18, 19, learning them firsthand.
Right. It's funny, a lot of times you're forced to have to go into this avenue of working for yourself or trying to make money, and you did it just for the angst of thinking more was possible. And
totally.
You acquired that. A lot of people, that their father's not in their home, and they have to make income for their family, and so they kind of stumble upon this entrepreneurship journey. it's great to hear that you kind of seeked it yourself.
Yeah.
And that you were interested in doing it. And you start to see the shift in kind of what that was doing for your life at such an early age.
Totally. Yeah, I never really looked at it that way, but it's so true.
Yeah. So after, this is all through college, right?
So this was 18, 19. At the time, I'm still going to school. I pledged Lambda Chi fraternity here on campus. They had like maybe 20, 30 people in their chapter. They'd just gotten rechartered. Probably the least popular, least pop-in fraternity on campus. And I'd gotten bids from other places, but I really liked how genuine and like just good-souled and good-hearted these guys were.
Yeah.
I had the best conversations with them, and I based my decision off of who do I want to have as a friend for life. You know, Chad that's pounding beers, or, you know, who ended up being my big brother, Linwood White, who's someone that just like spoke to me like very level and had a great head on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Anyway, pledged them and had an incredible experience with those guys. Ended up being the rush chair after I'd gotten initiated, and we had a great 2 semesters as me as rush chair where we like more than tripled the size of the fraternity. So that was cool to see, and then I left school right after that.
You didn't graduate?
No. Yeah, I dropped out right at the beginning of junior year.
Okay.
And
ooh, that's a tough decision.
Yeah, it was.
Why?
I'd made the decision way sooner. The only reason why I was even in it second semester sophomore year was because I wanted to finish out with my fraternity as a rush chair, and because I didn't know how to tell my dad yet. I was terrified of telling my dad, because that's been my dad's main thing, is that you're going to graduate, you're going to get a solid job, you're going to do it, you know? Most parents' dreams for their kids is for them to graduate.
Right.
And so the last thing I wanted to do was disappoint my dad.
Yeah.
That is like has been and will continue to be one of my biggest fears, is like being a disappointment to someone who I really look up to, which is my father.
Right.
And so that held me back. But it was a no-brainer for me, man. I was sitting in, because I'd changed my majors to marketing, and I was literally doing marketing for businesses at this point. And they would teach things that I wouldn't agree with, that I was teaching against when I was selling my clients on. Just archaic, old dinosaur ways of doing marketing. And, you know, when I started to realize that there was nothing that the schools could teach me that I couldn't teach myself, and that I was only really there for the connections, then I had to ask myself, am I willing to pay this amount of money for connections and kind of going through hell with these classes and stuff? And the answer was absolutely not. I'd rather invest in myself. I'd rather put $8,000 to $10,000 into myself, which is why I started going to seminars and started really change my life.
Yeah.
Because I started going into Vegas University. You know, I got to start changing my curriculum, and I started listening to people like Kevin Trudeau, who is a masterful teacher when it comes to things on law of attraction, or Earl Nightingale, or Napoleon Hill, and Think and Grow Rich, and just reading these books instead of the textbooks that I was reading. And I was getting so much more out of these books that I was reading that I self-prescribed, rather than what a teacher who has no idea who I want to be in life was trying to tell me to read.
Yeah.
You know? And so for me personally, school made absolutely no sense. It was a money hole, and it was a distraction, you know? I think something that a lot of people don't talk about is that guys and girls in school, especially if you're social and you're in the fraternity in the Greek life, you're doing so much drinking, you're exposed to so many drugs, and it's constant. I mean, I'd go to the fraternity house, and these are great freaking guys, but we were day drinking and playing basketball and hanging out. We're just kids at this point. And I had told myself that I wanted, you know, I didn't want to lose my childlike essence, but I also wanted to take life a little bit more seriously. And it's just like, it's hard to do when you're in school.
Yeah. And you were 18, 19?
19 going 20. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Most people wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to say that, but you saw it in my eyes.
I think what it was, man.
I was thinking it.
Was, again, some of the conversations I'd have with Mike, again, who didn't even go to school. He went to some Sedona University to learn metaphysics, and he was taking it all online. but some of the conversations we would have, he just would again reiterate the self-teaching and how easy it was and how accessible education was on things like YouTube. And something Mike used to do, just to kind of rub it in me and Hans's face, is he would go on Princeton or Harvard's website and download a course and take the course because they're free from years before. And he's like, I'm going to the most prestigious schools in the nation for free, you motherfuckers. And it's just like, he's just always hacking the system, And when somebody expands your mind like that as to what's possible, you either have to be ignorant and shut it out or listen and expand.
Right.
And the pressure from my father wasn't enough for me to just sell myself out. And he wasn't paying for it.
Yeah.
I was paying for it.
Sure.
So it was easier for me to make that decision.
Which gave you the power to make that decision.
It gave me the power.
Yeah.
And that's what I always loved about entrepreneurship, and the decision that I made was just like it didn't matter how broke I was, it didn't matter how much I was struggling, I was in control.
Yeah.
And I love that, So yeah, forget the exact age. I guess I dropped out when I was 20. When I was 20, 19, 20. And at this point, we had been doing something with Average Joe Promo that was a freaking blast. We had started a program called the Power Up Program. And what I was doing was going to high schools and talking in front of like CTE and entrepreneurship and marketing classes and telling them about my personal experience in entrepreneurship and how accessible entrepreneurship was. I would do this exercise where I would ask a random student what their top 3 interests were. He's like, well, I love the color pink, I love football and basketball, and I love talking. And I was like, YouTube channel, okay? Picture this. It's pink banners. She was a woman, and you're a woman broadcaster on all things football, basketball, and all you do is just watch sports and you just commentate on them, and you're just funny about it, you're serious about it, you're talking about it. And they're like, whoa, I could do that. It's like, hell yeah, you could do that. And just like really helping them understand how accessible this all was to build a brand and to be an entrepreneur. And then what I would do at the end, it was like, if anybody wants to learn from me personally and take a 12-week course and work with me, then here's my number. And I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but the teachers would let me because at this point they loved everything that I had to say. I wasn't supposed to be recruiting, but I was recruiting.
Yeah.
So I would put my number up there, and I'd get dozens and dozens of texts because I'd tell them to text me. I'd tell them exactly what to text me. And that was my funnel to get them into my recruitment. I'd set up an interview, and then I'd hire them as a door-to-door salesperson to sell budget cards, which were these plastic cards with coupons on the back, and they would sell them for $20 a pop in their neighborhoods to their friends and family and stuff. They'd do the same thing for their sports teams and not make any money. And I was like, hey, if you sell these, you'll make $8 a pop. So imagine you sell one in 1 hour, you're making $8 an hour. How many do you think you could sell in an hour? And they're like, oh shit, like 3 or 4. And I had kids selling like 40, 50 cards a week, making ridiculous amounts of cash for kids their age. I was making $4 a pop. Our company was making $8. And we created something really special where we had different regions and different pockets in North Carolina of kids just going door to door selling these budget cards. And in the process, we would have a meeting once a week on Wednesdays, and we would have it at the clubhouse of one of our friends' apartment complex, the retreat at NC State. Mm-hmm. We would have it in the upstairs clubhouse. Literally, like, we jam-packed like 20, 30 high school kids into this clubhouse. I didn't even live there. And I would check in and just have these, that's where we do payouts and where we do a lesson. And every week was a different lesson.
Yeah.
And I saw firsthand how open and malleable this high schoolers are to learning from somebody that they actually respect.
Right.
I think some of the issues with kids nowadays is that they don't respect their teachers. They don't respect the people that they're learning from. And I guarantee the teacher that they love the most are the ones that they respect the most. And so it would earn these kids respect because I'd go out on the doors with them. I wasn't just telling them what to do. I was out selling them. I was outperforming them. I was better than them in every facet. I had more money than them. I had a cooler car than they did. And I was like literally maybe 2 years their senior, 2 or 3 years their senior. They're like, holy shit, this guy's a boss. Yeah. And just learning, and it gave me the opportunity to teach, which in turn I'm learning, at an exponential rate. And so whenever you put yourself in a position to teach other people and you put yourself in that spot, you have to learn quickly and have new course material the next week. So my development started to get really high, and I was listening to audios and reading books on a daily basis because I needed material for my next class. Is the way I was thinking, but and I was learning all this stuff. So that was amazing. We had a ball doing that. Do you want me to carry you through my entire entrepreneur? Because it's a lot. We're at like 19, 20 years old.
Yeah. So what was your first event that you went to that really kind of expanded your mind?
So that's a great question, because it actually transitions where I was with Average Joe Pro, my next step. So in August 2016, I guess I'm 22 at this point-ish, 21. My 5 leaders that I had promoted into a position where they were now training their own circles, and they were getting commissions off the kids that they were training, and I was just getting commissions. I'd created hierarchy.
Yeah, a little MLM.
And some MLM, some pyramid. And
I'm not advocating for that at all, but you had it going on.
Like every business model, pretty much. And I was making overrides, and basically I'd hired this one kid that was around my age, and you could tell he was just kind of a jealous kid and wanted things for himself, and started just spewing poison into the organization, telling them that we weren't reporting taxes and we weren't doing it right, and that we were going to go under, and everyone was going to get in trouble, and so everyone should quit. And so literally overnight, I went from having probably like 65, 70 kids working for me to 0, to like no one. Everyone left, including the leaders that I'd spent so much time developing. And it sucked, man. It was a really sucky moment, because as a leader, when you have your guys betray you, and what feels like betrayal is just like, it takes you out. And he stole the business model and made something called like Campus Cause or something out in Chapel Hill with like whatever, like little key cards.
Yeah.
Wasn't successful. And I had to go into a position where I had no other way of making income. And so I started going door to door, just selling these cards as my only way of making money. And I was like, imagine just going from a place where from 18 to 21, you're coming up, you're a manager, you're a sales trainer, you're all these things. You think so highly of yourself in a lot of ways. You're making all this money consistently. I was making probably $800 to $1,000 a week at a really young age. And to have that all stripped, not only the cash, but like the leadership. Yeah. Was just like detrimental.
The identity of whom you thought you were based on all these materialistic things.
It's depressing. So
depressing.
Around that time, I'd gotten connected to someone online on Instagram that kind of looked like me and was a hustler like I was, and so we stayed connected. And I got him connected to Mike, and he invited Mike and I to go out to UPW, Tony Robbins.
Yeah,
November
UPW.
2016. And so Mike...
Where was it at? San Jose?
No. Yeah, San Jose. Nice. Nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I went for mine.
That was your first one?
Yeah.
In the Sharks Stadium.
Yep.
Yep.
Same.
So Mike couldn't go, but Mike was like, dude, you should go. I was like, all right, I'll go, but I have no money. I literally, when I said yes to Waleed, I was like, I'll go, but all I said was I'll go. I didn't tell him I had no money. I was like, I'll go. And it's like coming up to November. It's like November 2nd. Event is literally November 7th, okay? I don't have a plane ticket. I don't have a hotel. And I'm like, dude, I have to call Waleed and let him know I'm not going to be able to make it. And Mike's like, no, man, you got to go. I was like, with what money, bro? Like, I'm struggling, I have rent. And, I think Mike was maybe thinking about helping me. But literally the next day, November 3rd, I get a call from one of the guys I had recruited. He's like, hey, man, I wanted to surprise you, but one of the contracts for the budget cards for this baseball team just finished up, and they sold X amount of cards. I have a $1,200 check for you. And I was like, I was like, dude.
Yes, universe.
Meet me right now, bro. Meet me right now. I met him at the bank, deposited it. After it got deposited, it gave me $300 available balance, and I bought my plane ticket with my available balance, went back to zero because it was like a next day plane ticket. And then the guy that I met another homie that I was going with, he helped me pay for the hotel room. He actually helped me pay for food while I was there. I mean, I was dead broke, dude. Some of that $1,200 went to rent. So it's like, it was, it just got me there. And UPW was huge, man.
That was your first event?
That was my first event.
What'd you think?
I mean, for what I needed, which was a defibrillator to the chest, it was freaking perfect.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, UPW is Unleash the Power Within. It's the Tony Robbins event in his multiple courses that is really ultimately the first one you should go to because it literally strips everything, all your learning, the way in which you acquire information. It literally strips everything down to the foundation and then starts to rebuild a new way of thinking about yourself, erasing your story, your shame, whatever it is that you're going through. And it basically rewrites your way of thinking.
Yeah, that's what I mean, the Dickens process.
So
the Dickens process, you touched on it about rewiring your way of thinking and stripping yourself of limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Where he'll literally take you through this process where, Charles Dickens is the author of A Christmas Carol, and Scrooge gets visited by 3 ghosts from A Christmas Past. And so he kind of re-scripts it, and Tony's like, I want you to imagine getting visited by 3 ghosts of your future. A ghost from 5 years, a ghost from 10 years, and a ghost from 20 years. And basically what he has you do is he has you think about all the limiting beliefs that you have. And then he starts saying very intensely in a dark room with like an immense amount of power. It's like, you're nobody. You're not going to get over your limiting beliefs. Who do you think you are? You're going to stay exactly the way that you have been. And now I want you to look in front of the mirror 5 years from now. What do you look like? How do you feel? Blah, 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 blah. Dude, it's just like...
I just got chills because that shit is so powerful. You're bawling, crying.
Oh my God.
You're literally crying with your eyes shut in pitch black in a stadium, screaming, like yelling at this person, no, I will not be that person. It's crazy.
It is, man.
But you leave that and you're like, rah!
Exactly. He has you like so afterwards he takes you through this process where he has you rewire your thoughts, and he has you think about the 3 limiting beliefs that you had and replace them with empowering beliefs, and then he has you anchor them and anchor them and anchor them, and you start to believe it. And my 3 empowering beliefs, because I don't even remember the limiting, he literally does such a good job of this where I literally started to forget what it was, the 3 limiting beliefs, where I was like, what was I? What?
Right.
What was it? How was I limiting myself again?
Yeah.
And the 3 empowering beliefs were that my attitude determines my level of success more than my money does. I'd have nobody to compare myself to but myself, and I can trust and love openly. And those things were just those were the types of beliefs I needed coming out of that freaking conference. And so after I left UPW, the guy that invited me out to UPW that got me my ticket was actually starting a company, and I didn't know it, but he was recruiting me. And a month later, after being on the doors again for another month selling $20 cards, he was selling solar. And I was like, dude, I might as well sell a $30,000 piece of equipment if I'm going to be out in the doors. I don't want to sell budget cards anymore.
Right.
And he was also giving me the opportunity to be a co-founder. And so, January, I got started with him, 2017. It was awesome, man. We moved into this home in Boston, Massachusetts, actually Sudbury, Massachusetts. It was 6 of us. We were all the co-founders, and I show up the first night, and I was like, I want to go out in the doors. Let's go. And it's a freaking snowstorm outside. It's snowing. I'm knocking on doors, and I did that I stayed with Da Vinci until like literally this month, and for a majority of it, I was knocking on doors selling solar. Started my own sales teams, came up to be a VP of talent for the company, where I built some awesome recruitment processes and systems, and was the main recruiter for the company, recruiting 25 to 40 people for the company a month.
Right.
I had incredible experiences. Moved from Boston to LA to Chicago, and got to learn a lot about myself and what I wanted to do in life, and how to build a business, and what it looks like to have operating manual and an executive team and books with a CFO, and doing it all the right ways, raising money or putting together a pitch deck and making corporate partnerships and getting screwed over and building teams and promoting people into positions of power. So I learned a ton in that experience. It was awesome. And during this time, I was still connected to Valor and what we were doing with marketing, not nearly as intimately and involved. So I was kind of going a little bit back and forth there. And then finally, April of this year, 2019, I decided to leave Da Vinci behind, essentially, and come out to Raleigh to work with the Valor guys again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had just come back to Raleigh in April before I met you in July.
Yeah.
June,
yeah.
I think it was.
I'd only been there about 2 months, back again.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd been back and forth. Like, the year before, I'd spent about 6 months there, living at Sky House. But then I moved back out to Chicago.
Yeah.
And then I came back.
And who was your introduction to the Raleigh Renaissance to go there for Christian's birthday?
I had met Christian personally.
Yeah.
So one thing that I feel like has led to a lot of my personal fulfillment and meeting incredible people is that I'm not afraid to put myself out there. Anyone that's out there wondering, how you can take your next step in life, my number one thing would be just put yourself out there and meet people.
Yeah.
And I had seen on Instagram is like my business Tinder. I had seen on Instagram that Christian was involved with Sharif, and I had some really good conversations with Sharif at the shop where we'd go back and forth about books.
Yeah, this was Raleigh Raw.
Yeah, at Raleigh Raw. And I'd started to see that Christian was working with Sharif, so I introduced myself to Christian online. I was like, hey, man, I've talked to Sharif a bunch of times. He's like a mentor to me. I would love to get connected to you, really for no reason. And he was like, yeah, totally. And we have an awesome FaceTime, and we get to really share. We got really raw with each other on our first interaction. He's like, I don't even know why I'm telling you this stuff, man. You're like a kid, and but you're just such a good listener. And I got to learn a lot about him, and so we followed up on a lot of those meetings.
Yeah.
Got close to him, and so when it came for his birthday, he gave me a personal invite. Christian did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I literally had met those guys like a few weeks prior at the block party. And Michelle from Diced.
She's awesome.
She's awesome, yeah. Sharif was like, come to the block party. And then when I was at the block party, it was like, you need to meet Christian. You need to meet Christian. And then I literally just kind of bumped into him at the block party. It was like, man, I've been hearing a lot about you. And
have you guys stayed connected?
We have, yeah. He actually felt bad for the block party. We had like lunch after he moved and he started working full time for Diced. He was like, man, I feel bad of how I acted at the block party. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I felt like I kind of blew you off. And it was very sweet what he did. We went out to lunch and he just like apologized. And I was like, man, no apology needed. Like I get it. I'm a new guy. And he's like, yeah, but after seeing who you are, the things you post on social media, and I hate when somebody says what you post on social media, but you can kind of find an underlying tone in people when they're posting and like what their beliefs are and who they are as a person when they are, showing their truest self. And he's like, I really want to have a relationship with you instead of just like blowing you off like I feel like I did at the block party. And so
I wonder how many times he's used that line with chicks.
Yeah. Right? And then so Sharif was like, Sharif just kept inviting me to things. That's awesome. The next thing was Christian's birthday and was like, you should come. And anytime Sharif told me to jump, I said, how high? And that is literally how I've been introduced to everyone in Raleigh.
So sick.
Right.
Yeah, the story between Sharif and Christian too is so cool. Just their come up. I learned so much just from talking to Christian.
Right.
And I think that's why I love connecting with people.
Yeah.
Because I always ask about their stories and their paths. I don't really ask them like specific questions about specific things. It's more just like generally you can just learn so much through somebody's story.
Yeah.
And how they process it. And like a lot of times people just drop nuggets as they're telling their story. It was like, oh, whoa, okay.
You're literally talking about the reason why I started this podcast. I feel like everyone has a story, and it's a beautiful one, and everyone needs a platform to tell it, but it's up to you to kind of speak that truth and to tell the story, or else somebody else is going to tell it for you.
Totally.
And that's going to identify you as how people perceive you, or just by telling your story and saying what it really is, what the real story is, who you are, where you've come from, these limiting beliefs that people might think about you, which are false realities.
Totally. Yeah.
So
I think one thing I haven't mentioned about the story too that I feel like is important, because this has been like a theme and probably one of the biggest lessons in life, is that when that vision that Mike had when we were 18, 19 at his house in Youngsville, it never died. It never has. And so we, at a young age, really, really believed that we were capable of massive things. I mean, I shit you not, created an organization. This is Mike's vision, and us adding fuel to the fire. Create an organization called the GDF, the Global Development Federation, and what we were going to do with the GDF was bring together the best scientists and inventors that that humanity knew, modern, and specifically in the fields of energy technology, and we were going to bring these inventors together to help them create funding for their projects, so that we could bring a potential free energy technology to the world. Once that invention had been proven and we had gotten the funding, we were going to go to countries, either progressive countries like Finland, South Africa, or countries that were on the come up like Brazil, and that were just looking for an edge in the global economy, bring this technology exclusively to their country, boost their economy tremendously, and start working on things like health, economy, energy, infrastructure, and be almost like essentially like an organization that just adds fuel to a government and their power and their people, and then create a federation of other countries that wanted to be a part of that movement. And we have NAFTA. We wanted the GDF. We wanted GDF to be a NAFTA.
Yeah.
We came up with this plan at like 19, and all the things that we were doing were in light of that. We had cash cows to make money to fund those projects. We even found some inventors. This inventor called John Rosebush, you can look him up on LinkedIn. He's freaking nuts. This guy said that he had an energy technology that uses leverage and uses rivers, and it could create terawatts of energy, and he was just saying unlimited energy.
Right.
And so we funded this guy's project up to like $150,000. We created this crazy call system with like this guy from South Africa that had a really cool like English accent, and we had a data scraper that was getting all the numbers of different government agencies and private institutions that might listen to this type of technology. And then we developed a script and everything to get people on the phone with Mike, so that Mike could be the president of the GDF that's looking to bring these energy technologies, and that we were looking for validation or funding and blah blah blah. And we got close, dude. We were talking to Department of Justice, we were talking to energy ministers, and like last second, as we had closed in on some engineers from the Department of Energy in the United States to check out this technology of John Rosebush, he pulled the plug, went totally freaking AWOL. Must have been a scam the whole time, but just like, we were having FaceTimes with this guy who was sending us prototype like blueprints. I mean, we're trying to do our best to like make it legitimate.
Yeah.
And the reason why I mention all that is because I think the reason why we were able to move so quickly in mindset and in progress is because our end goal wasn't entrepreneurship. Our end goal wasn't to start a business. That was a means to an end to fund the project to do YZ down the road. Mm-hmm. And so the lesson in that to me is that the only thing that separates someone that's good from great is the size of their dream and the amount of time that they spend working on it.
Yeah.
It's literally the only thing. Because if you were to get me at 18 and my goal was I want to start a business and see where I end up at 24, and then versus me at 18, I want to start a global federation and eventually become a world leader and see where I'm at 24, the trajectory is going to be exponentially different if I can continue on the track. And I think where a lot of people lose themselves is they stop believing in themselves and they stop believing in what they're doing. And I think there is such thing as a sweet spot of a goal where, sometimes goals can be too big to where you don't even believe that it's possible. And I think that's what started to happen to us at a young age as we started to really get close. We were like, holy shit, is this happening?
Right.
And sure enough, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important theme in my story is that I'm no different than most entrepreneurs out there, even my age. I know some guys my age that are just absolute savages. They're even farther along in business than I am. But when it comes to like mindset, vision, and fulfillment and the things that I want to do for the world, it's just like, it's hard to compare because I've been thinking this way for such a long time. When I mention some of the things I aspire to do to even anyone, they're like, you're fucking weird, dude, like who are you to believe that you can do that?
Right.
I was like, I'm me, I don't think it's that
who are you to believe that I can't?
Exactly. I've always surrounded myself with people that believe that I could, so I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know any different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. So leapfrogging to Valor. So now you, Mike, and Hans, right, mm-hmm. have all created Valor Media, right? Valor Media.
We call our organization Valor Corp.
Valor Corp. Okay.
And everything's a subsidy of that.
Yeah. So you guys do. You explain it because I'm not going to try to explain it because you guys do some pretty insane stuff.
Yeah. So that Average Joe Promo was the name of the marketing company that we started when we were 19.
Right.
And we were doing, like I said, SEO, websites, logos, stuff like that. That transitioned into social media services, which first was Blaze, then it turned into Valor Media, which now it's transitioning to a new entity called Chefi Social. And basically what we do on that front for social media is that we manage small businesses' social media. We'll post for them. We'll help them grow. We'll talk to the people that they have, their community in the DMs. We'll even convert them on some sort of like call to action. So if you're capturing email or you're a restaurant and you just want people to redeem your coupon, we'll put it out there hundreds of times a day and we'll convert on it and we'll have conversations of people saying, yeah, I'm coming in, or here's my email. And so we'll actually like generate ROI in the DMs, which is unique to a lot of social media agencies. Most agencies can't do that because they don't have the infrastructure, the admins, the bandwidth, the scripts to be able to do all that.
Yeah.
So we developed that, which really set us apart, and plus we're cheap as hell, So that's our social media stuff. We represent, over 100 accounts on social, as little as sometimes we'll just do their growth, and it's very simple, to as much as like we're managing your Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and with strategy and consulting and analytics and the whole nine, and curated posts, and we're getting influencers to interact with your brand, and we're building brand identity. I mean, we'll go that far, or as small as just growth.
Blue check.
Yeah, exactly.
Get that blue check.
So that transitioned into us separating Valor Media from Chefi Social. Chefi Social now is our very standardized social media package, mostly for restaurants, Instagram, Facebook, and that's it. There's nothing bigger than an Instagram, Facebook package. It doesn't get any more expensive than like $1,200. And, we'll do all the basic, awesome things that you need us to do as a social media agency. And then we have Valor Media, and we in the process of trying to build brands and give strategy, met some incredible connects in the industry that now give us the ability to put people on podcasts, on TV, on digital publications.
Yeah. Hey, just the recording.
Magazine publications. I'm going to start booking people for your podcast.
Perfect.
So, you know.
Alley-oop it for me. I'll
yeah,
hit a home
man.
run.
Yeah, bro. And that's such a commodity, you know, because there are brands, there are entrepreneurs that would love to get on a podcast with you, you know, and have that brand exposure to people in Raleigh, LA, you know. And so Valor Media, what it does is just primarily focuses on what we call fame engineering. We'll make you famous online.
Yeah.
We'll get you a blue check mark. We'll get you hundreds of thousands of followers. We'll get you published on Business Insider, Forbes. We'll get you featured on Ed Milet, and we'll get you on a TV show.
Yeah.
I mean, you are now an influencer, you know, and it costs money. That part's not cheap. It's because you can't find it online. Try looking that crap online, and you can't find it.
Yeah.
It takes connects. And so that's a really cool thing that we've been starting to do that's kind of put us on a new level. It's basically a PR company.
Yeah.
So Valor Media, Chefi. During this process, there was a big scare that we had last summer. Not this summer, but summer of 2018. I'll never forget it because I was actually at dinner with Christian and Sharif. We were in the basement of City, and I forgot why. I think it was one of them's. It was about to be their birthdays, or they were just going out. I was like, "Hey, can I come?" And they're like, "Yeah, tag along." And you'll find that I'm not shy to invite myself to stuff.
Yeah.
And so they said yeah, and so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my phone's blowing up more than usual. It's like boom, 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 going crazy. And basically, I found out that there was a tweet that had been live for about 45 minutes that had been published by our creative director, and I was responsible for the quality check, so it really just falls on me. But our creative director created this meme of what looked like a prison inmate, like going to jail, and the tweet was like, when somebody decides to have McDonald's versus our client. I'm not going to mention them because it was really bad publicity and they wouldn't want to be mentioned. And the picture ended up being James Foley, the reporter that was the first ISIS execution like overseas. And he was from DC. Our client was from DC. And dude, it fell down on us like a freaking wildfire, man. I mean, we had verified accounts, screenshotting. I mean, we deleted the tweet as quickly as we could, but it was just too late. Gotten retweeted and verified accounts screenshotting us and just sending us all sorts of just hate and like, how could you? Who are, you know? First to our client, if you could edit that out, that'd be awesome. But first to our client, and then then we start trying to take the blame and like, no, it was us. And on top of that, we put out an apology that people just didn't take a liking to, and they tore us up on the apology. And by the end of it, man, we had gotten hundreds of calls from local publications, from WRAL, I mean, News and Observer, to as big as like, I mean, we were on MSNBC, Barstools, Adweek, Fox News. It was huge.
Who was talking for on your behalf?
Mike. Yeah. And Mike got just completely slaughtered on Twitter. I mean, Twitter is just the land of BS, man. I mean, people were just like going in on him. And
I hope that creative director is no longer.
Yeah, she was fired. She wasn't. What
was the reasoning for the tweet?
She just said I was creating hundreds of pieces of content. I didn't know that was James Foley. Like, you know, and we ended up donating $10,000 to the James Foley Foundation. We got in contact with his parents and apologized and made a donation, which they made public, and learned our lesson. And we implemented heavy quality checks after that. We have 2 quality checks before any post goes out now. Yeah. And but we lost over half our business overnight. That was just another. Just to the knees, man. And like, not only that, but it's the public ridicule on top of that.
Sure.
It'd be one thing to lose the business, but like, I mean, Mike's getting called out, the company's getting called out. It was ugly. It was really bad. And even to this day, I still have people when they look us up online. They're like, did you know? Or I'll have people that just totally ghost me, and we'll get to the certain point, then they'll look us up and like just like they don't want to have anything to do with us, which I don't blame them. I mean, it's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why we're rebranding.
Right.
But when that happened, the reason why I bring that up is when that happened, we realized how susceptible we were to something bad happening and us losing everything. And so we wanted to create, residual means of income. And so we started to invest in these e-com stores and these Amazon automation stores. And, hundreds of thousands of dollars in investment later, we now have 5 e-com stores and 2 Amazon stores that create income for us on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And we also have, as you can see these signs here, we have a wholesale flipping business called Green Door that essentially what we'll do is we'll find vacant properties and looking for homeowners looking for cash, and we'll connect them with the buyer and just take the assignment fee, just middlemen. Mm-hmm. And we have a friend who's been doing that for like 2 years. And even recently, Mike bought an app, and we want to create a meme page and market the app. So we're just relentlessly building. We, as you can see, don't believe in just doing one thing.
Yeah.
We believe in diversifying. We believe in increasing bandwidth through systemizing and hiring. We believe that if you are a slave to one thing, it's because you haven't created the systems and you haven't hired the right people. It's not an excuse. And so Mike is also just a crazed person that just wants it all, and he just continues pushing the bill. And, it's landed us where we are today, where, we hope that by the end of next year, or if not the beginning of 21, we can really start getting into the stuff we've always wanted to get into, which is just like technology and inventing. We have some really cool inventions that we've prototyped or like have like drawings of, and that we've talked to some really cool companies about, like a progressive firefighter helmet. Yeah. Or something called a buzz stick, which I'm not even going to get into. That's the direction that we're headed in. That's where we want to go. Which again, I think it's that vision that helps it. When you talk to most entrepreneurs, and I tell them, yeah, we're in e-com, real estate, social media, and PR. They're like, holy shit, why? Because their only vision was to just make it to the top of their one business in their one industry. Yeah. And so anything beyond that is just like too much. Right. But for us, it's always been the way. And so it's always been easy for us to want to expand and do more. Yeah. And maybe it slows us down in some ways. I'm not saying it's the silver bullet and the way to do business. It just works for us. Yeah. For sure.
That's all that matters. So let's dive a little bit deeper into, I think it's good to kind of expand a little bit on your belief system, because I know we talked briefly about it in the beginning, just your ability to just have a different viewpoint, not only on the world, but on yourself, on your beliefs, on how you can acquire information. I think that's a diamond in the rough. Not that many people have that ability. And so where do you think all these beliefs about not only yourself, but, I know that you are also a universe follower, you're a big believer with astrology, and, so where did all that come from?
So I guess the first thing I want to say is, like, I haven't even labeled myself as to what I believe in. Just to like give you some perspective, like, I've done countless Scientology courses. I listen to almost on the daily the Gospel of Thomas, which is like this hidden gospel of Jesus, straight from the words of Jesus. And then I'll listen to, some law of attraction stuff. So I haven't surrendered or submitted my belief to really anything. Mm-hmm. I just love good information. Yeah. And I try to pick the things that work for me and apply them in the ways that I can. So and then including like astrology and numerology. I think astrology is more numerology than anything, in my personal opinion. Right. But I'll read my pattern app every morning and do some self-awareness stuff, and I'll journal on it. Love the pattern. Yeah, and then I'll do ACIM.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just like...
ACIM is A Course in Miracles, for those of you who don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like this exercise this morning, I was like, I am not angry about this thing in my life for the reasons that I think, you know? And it's just like...
Right.
So, you know, I guess I wanted to like say that because me personally, I have yet to come to a doctrine or a dogma that like, I'm like, this is it. This is the only thing that really matters. This is the truth.
Right.
And maybe I will, maybe I won't. But where I think a lot of that came from was from one of the guys that I mentioned initially that I started listening to is Kevin Trudeau. And he talks about 5 basic principles. First basic principle is, who do you listen to? You listen to the people that have what you want and have been where you've been or understand where you've been. And so I started listening to only people that have some sort of aspect of life that I want,
right,
and that would understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And I think that's gotten me really far, because I think a lot of people listen to a lot of the wrong people because they don't even have what they want. So
or they surround themselves with the wrong people.
With the wrong people,
yeah.
Right. And so it's like, you know, good examples like family members. Not one of my family members, besides like the family that my dad created. I'm going to listen to my dad with everything that it comes to building a good home, serving your wife in the way that, you know, and saving your income sustainably. I'll listen to him on those things, but I would never listen to him on anything that has to do with entrepreneurship.
Right.
Because he's never done it, you know.
Right.
I would only listen to Mark Cuban when it comes to stuff like that, because he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
So who do you listen to was my first principle. And then the second one was teachability index. And basically what that teaches is that your teachability index needs to be as close to 100 at all times as possible. And basically how you find your teachability index is your ability to be taught and learn new information over your ability to apply the new information. And if it's 10 out of 0, then your index is 0.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 10 over 10, then you're at a 10.
Right.
Right? And so I've always been a huge believer in not only, once I've determined who it is that I want to listen to, retaining and being open to the information and then applying it to my life. I'm such an applicator. I want to see it in action. And then the third thing is the training balance scale. Training balance scale basically teaches it's 90% mindset and 10% skill. And
say that again, because I don't think people realize how important that is.
Yeah, the training balance scale, basically like the reason why it's called a training balance scale is because like how are you going to train yourself in what kind of balance? And most people train on skill. I need to learn this skill. I need to read this textbook. I need to apply this, and I need to learn what thousands, if not millions, of other people have already learned and try to be the best at it, right? Versus developing your mindset and your self-belief and your identity and becoming someone that can just hire to do the skill that you're just so desperately we're trying to learn.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's where mindset becomes so powerful. Like if you look at some of the most successful people in the world, you would think they're dumb, you know, but they're just emotionally and socially intelligent and they believe in themselves.
Yep.
And that comes from mindset. Yeah. So 90% mindset, 10% skill is what you should be focusing a lot of your training and your efforts on when it comes to self-development.
Yeah.
And then the fourth thing was your states of learning and it's almost like states of consciousness, where the first state, imagine learning how to tie your shoe. First, it's unconscious incompetence. You don't even know that tying shoes is a thing, like Velcro shoes all the way, you know, like slip-ons. Okay?
Right.
Then you start seeing the dope kicks that have the laces on it, and you become conscious that you're incompetent in tying laces. You're like, shit, I want those shoes, but I can't tie my shoes.
All I know how to do is to fasten the Velcro.
Exactly.
Right.
But now you know that you don't know.
Yeah.
So first you don't know that you don't know. Then you know that you don't know.
Right.
And then the third state is learning. And it's basically knowing that you're starting to learn. And it's called conscious competence.
Right.
And you start to okay, left loop, right loop, make it around the bend, through the hole, tighten. Okay.
Right.
And you're thinking about it, you know? But eventually what happens when you're tying your shoe is that you're just like...
Brain goes into cruise control mode.
Exactly. That's unconscious competence, mastery.
Right.
And so the point of any skill or anything in life is to get to unconscious competence where you don't even have to think about it. It becomes automatic.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with 10,000 hours and mastery and putting in the work and the discipline and the time. And then the fifth basic is remember the basics.
Yeah. Yeah, that 10,000 hours, like the Bruce Lee line of like, I'm more afraid of the person that's practiced a punch 10,000 times.
Than the person who's practiced 10,000 punches once.
Right.
You know? So it was those. Kevin Trudeau goes through. There's an audio called "Your Wish Is Your Command." It's a 12 cassette audio. Most people can't get past cassette number 2 because I genuinely think that he purposely talks about random la for like 2 hours in the first 2 audios to like get people to plug out. And then when it comes CD3, you start to really like, whoa, okay, this is some next level stuff. And I was learning at like 18, 19, and it really carried me through. He gives you 12 books that are good to read. So I've read books like The Magic of Thinking Big, Think and Grow Rich, The Secret, Your Wish Is Your, or Asking It Is Given by Abraham Hicks.
Man, The Secret, that was my first journey into this whole wormhole that we're in of just...
When was that? It's like 15 years ago, right? When did that come out?
I mean, it's been a minute, so maybe 32, 29, 30. I mean, it was a while ago, and my girlfriend at the time is the one that introduced me to it. I read the book, and then I watched the movie. And the movie, as corny as it is, was like the game changer for me because it gives you all the visuals.
Yeah.
It gives you all like the... Like... I hate to say this, and it's so silly, because I used to talk to people like, I don't think I believe if you think about a check, you're going to get a check in the mail. And, it's kind of like your story about UPW, the Unleashed Power Within event. You're like, I don't have any money, I can't go. And then you got a phone call. It's like, that's happened to me.
Yeah.
Where unexpectedly, through a modeling gig that I had in LA, I got a check for $3,000.
Let's go.
And I was thinking about getting a check, and this was when I was kind of in a point in between clients, and I was like, I didn't need any income, but I was thinking like, man, I really wish I could get some income, and like, sure as shit, I get a check in the mail. And it was like, whoa. So now every time I go to pull into a shopping center, anytime I'm going to the grocery store, I manifest a parking spot.
Dude, the parking spots, man.
Super duper close.
Always.
To the door. And if I don't get it, cool.
Whatever.
I'm not mad.
No.
But 90% of the time, I'm getting that parking spot.
So here's a fable, or it's actually like a joke, that helped me really understand the law of attraction. And it has to do with the priest in the flooded city, where he was in his church, and the city started to flood, and everyone in the church was like, Father, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. He was like, no, I have faith in God that I will be okay, that I will be saved. It's all in God's hands. Okay? And so everyone's like, all right, whatever. I'm out,
Right.
So they leave. People come banging on the doors. I mean, the water's risen to like chest level, and they're like, sir, we got to get you out of here before we can anymore. It's like a bunch of firefighters. Please come with us. God's going to save me. I'm going to be completely fine. I'm going to stay with my church. He eventually gets onto the roof. I mean, he's on the roof of his church, and a boat comes by, hey, Pastor, we got to get you out of here. Like, this is really your last chance. Otherwise, you're going to drown. He's like, God is going to save me. I'm going to be completely fine. I'm going to stay with my church. Eventually, he dies, and he's at the gates of heaven, and he's like, God, I trusted you. I confided in you. Why didn't you save me? He was like, I sent you firefighters, a boat. Right. I sent you
3 people to pull you out of this crazy event.
But he never took action.
You didn't look at the signs.
He didn't look at the signs. He wasn't aware, and he didn't take action.
Those damn omens.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So I think being able to put yourself in the right frequency is one thing, but being able to be aware of the opportunities that come out of that is completely different. And then being able to understand that you have to take action on that. and then be grateful for it so that you can get more and open the door.
Yeah.
Mike actually taught me this. I don't know where he learned this from, but he believes like the law of attraction to be a cycle of awareness, understanding, action, and gratitude.
Yeah. I believe in that.
Yeah.
So, what's next for Vegas?
I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing.
Yeah.
More of it, more intense. The next step in business is more systems and more hires, because the whole point of this thing is freedom. It's not to create more work. It's not to be busy as hell. It's not to be the rich guy that has no time. Screw that. I want all the time in the world to do whatever it is I want. That's the end goal.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to take steps to being in a place where residually I'm set if I didn't work for 6 months in 2020. I want to make that happen in 2020. In leading up to that moment where I have residual income, creating enough income for me that I can live on it and pay rent, have a lifestyle, pay for my car, all the things that I need, $3,000-$4,000 a month. If I can get residual up to that point and I'm not working to create that income, it's just coming in regardless of what I do.
Yeah.
Then there's two main things that I really want to get started on that I've already started to ideate and put some pieces together, and I'm going to start, especially now that I'm announcing it and making it a thing. One thing is the People's Podcast. So I want to get into podcasting myself. I want mine to be centered around tough conversations, not necessarily tough conversations like abortion or like the wage gap. Is capitalism right for America?
Right.
That type of stuff. Political. And I want to be able to get an expert that's left-leaning, some sort of professor, author, someone who's experienced, and then right-leaning, 2 separate episodes, and then a third episode, I invite someone like you on. You'll listen to the previous 2, and we'll have a conscious conversation on the tough topic.
Yeah.
Not with the...
I like that.
Yeah, not with the idea to come to a conclusion.
But just to talk.
To just talk.
Yeah.
There's really no point, but just showing people that it's okay to have tough conversations, even with somebody that doesn't agree with you.
Right. I think that's where society needs to grow into knowing that you don't have to make somebody think or believe the things that you believe in. And I think we talked about this at a conversation with 5 guys, is like, if you're showing up, I think we talked about religion. My thought was I used to have a huge negative connotation with people that believed in God or, whatever their limiting belief, I say that with air quotes, of whatever I thought their limiting beliefs were about their religion, whether they agreed in abortion or not, basically all the things that make us human. I would look at that and be like, ugh, I don't want to mess with that. Like, I just want to stay in my little circle. As soon as I started to really expand my understanding and have these conversations and not judge people based off of they believed in Jesus, or they studied the Quran, or they're Arabic, from the Middle East. Like, I stopped judging people from what they believed in, what their thoughts were. And if they were being a good person, if they were showing up as a good human, then I met them halfway and I was okay with what they were doing. And that's really expanded my mindset on this belief in not only this higher power, but calling it God.
Yeah.
And it's really shifted my perspective on so many things. And it's been such a beautiful experience.
That's amazing that the second you started to open yourself up, it created a perspective that served you better.
Yeah.
Instead of being confined to a perspective you thought was the best thing, but you had no idea.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite quotes is the things you look at change when you change the way you look at things.
That's awesome.
And it really just has overcome my life with this amazing sense of gratitude.
I love that.
With every single littlest thing.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that People's Podcast is a sensation, man. I want it to be big, not for me, but because I really truly believe people need to learn how to have tough conversations. It is a dying art.
Right.
Where there's so much polarization, there's so much you versus me, there's so much black and white, there's no more gray, there's no more coming to terms or, trying to agree on some things and making those things happen. So the last step in that podcast that I want to do is that the things that I really end up personally believing in,
right,
I want to go and be an activist for and record myself doing it and then vlog that and have like a YouTube channel centered around activism based off of the conversations that I had. So like if I talk to an expert, two experts, and I have a conscious conversation, by the end of it, I'm like, wow, I really believe in this. Like, this is,
or change my mind.
Yeah, this changed my mind. I'm going to go out and like try this and do this. I think that'll be, because not only do I want people to be able to have the conversation, I want to be able to have people see that they can go out and act and do something about it in their local communities.
Right.
Because if something drives me crazy, I mean, my biggest pet peeve is victimhood and just believing that you are the victim and that you can't do anything about it. I hate that.
Right.
It is like so anti-me, you know? So People's Podcast. And then there's a brand that I want to launch that I think will be a lot of fun. And I think social media will take it with open arms. It's a brand called #Total, TOTL, and it stands for Turn Off the Lights. And what I essentially want it to be all about is encouraging small actions that lead to big results when it comes to sustainability in the environment. So as simple as turning off your lights behind you, it's the #total commitment. And so I want people to make the total commitment whenever they get a piece of clothing, and it's going to be all sustainable, made from hemp or bamboo, whatever the most sustainable thing is. I'll do the research. I'll make it awesome. Something will always be wrong. Someone will always find a reason to trash on it, but whatever. I'll do my best. That's for sure.
Right.
And we'll also have really cool branded, water canisters and metal straws and and recycle bags and stuff like that. I want for people to be inspired to go out and do local trash cleanups all around the total. I want it to be a movement. And so the way that I see it happening is like having a social media page and having people do like the total challenge where they just record themselves doing really simple, like turning off the lights and doing #total in the post. And then they get entered to win to a piece of memorabilia every week. We'll have a winner of somebody that's going out there with doing the total commitment.
Yeah, I love that.
And potentially making brand partnerships with big companies that want to associate themselves with a B Corp. That's all for sustainability and stuff, and they can be sponsors to our company, and they'll be included in our marketing and stuff like that. So it's brainstormed in my head, and I know I want to make it happen. And
let's go.
Yeah, the inspiration came out of me turning off the lights, and I was just like. It's just like
it's so funny that you say that. I literally go behind my nieces all the time in my house, and I have to shut off the lights, and I literally have to tell them, like, where do you think this power is coming from? Like, you're contributing to global warming and your carbon footprint just by leaving this on. And then you see like their oh shit face because they have like no idea. And then I have to break it down to them, and I love them to death. They're 18 years old and 16, and it's like trying to have to really explain to them, you got to turn the power off. Because leaving the power on is just increasing your carbon footprint and increasing
it's like one of the
emissions.
easiest things you can do.
It's the easiest thing you can do.
And that's what I love about turn off the lights is like just like anything in life, once one thing becomes easy, it all starts to become easy. And once you start looking for it, then it all starts to once you make the total commitment, you're going to want to turn off all the lights. You're going to want to recycle everything because it's cool. And I want like animated educational videos and stuff that go up on the gram and stuff. So I'm excited about it, man. I think Total will be a lot of fun. And I think it'll be a success. And the last little thing for me that's next is I just want to continue writing and sharing. I realize more and more how much I love writing and how much I starve myself of this love that I have.
Right.
I don't do it enough. and I admire all the people that do. And
So do I, but I can't do it.
Yeah, dude, I feel you. I want to blog, you know, and I have my Twitter active now, which is good. It's like little mini blogs that are good. I had my Medium going for a while, but I want to get right back into those things.
Yeah.
Be an advocate for positive masculinity, taking action, discipline, just stoicism, just kind of being the new age man and everything that comes with that. You know, and it's not privy to kids my age, it's really anyone, you know.
Right.
I've learned some of my best lessons from guys, you know, in their 40s and 50s that realize this kind of stuff, and I just kind of want to be the bridge for my generation and be like, yo, like,
this is the way.
This is the way. Stop watching porn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like our conversation. I keep referring back to it. The conversation with 5 guys when we started talking about semen retention. And It was like, God, you have no idea how many people have contacted me on Instagram and social just about those words alone. I literally had a conversation with a girl this morning who literally just finished the podcast and was like, I need to talk to you about semen retention. I didn't agree with you on this thing. And I was like, all right, well, let's unpack that. Let's talk a little bit about it. And I was like, I'm not saying that guys shouldn't masturbate, but I'm choosing to not masturbate. If I'm going to have sex with a girl, then I'm going to do it. But what she was thinking is, she's like, well, I masturbate sometimes to make love to myself.
Oh, it's totally different for women.
Completely different for women. And I was trying to help her understand that when we masturbate, it's like a quick release, like, let's rub one out really quick, let's watch porn, let's get off. Mm-hmm. And what it's doing is it's ingraining this methodology in our heads of like this muscle memory that is a super fast, quick release.
Yeah.
And then what I said to her, which she disagreed with me, I was like, you know, you can't please a woman fast. And she's like, I beg to differ. I can get off pretty quick. And I was like, well, hold on, wait. Let's I can do it in like 30 seconds with a porn that's really good in front of me. I don't think I can get a girl off in 30 seconds.
Not without some sort of intimacy and foreplay and all the things that come with it.
And so I think really just talking a lot about, I mean, that conversation that we had at Raleigh Raw was just so prolific and just it hit a lot of people.
That's awesome.
And it made just such an impact. I mean, that episode alone got over 100 plays within like the first week that it had launched.
It's amazing.
I was blown away by it.
I think people are really interested in sexuality for obvious reasons, but learning more about positive sexuality and positive expression of our sexual energies. Yeah. I think it's a hot thing right now. That
I would even challenge you a little bit further. It was more so that it was about sexuality, that it was about this masculinity and the mask that guys wear.
It's huge.
To make themselves cooler or better or stronger or not weak is what people really saw within us. Because there were men that were contacting me that were saying, I have never found any other individuals that can talk about things the way that you guys were talking about and be so okay to just show yourselves, your truest form, your heart, your mind, everything, and really not care what other people thought. And it was just so beautiful to see that that's what people grasp from that, because that's who we are. I mean, that's awesome. Who we are without the mics on. Yeah. And I just thought it was such a beautiful outcome of something that I had no fucking plan for.
For sure.
I mean, I think we've talked about this briefly. If not, I've talked about it to a couple of people. I was shitting my pants before that podcast when all of you guys started showing up because I was like, fuck. Like, you know, it was like maybe my 6th or 7th recording, and I was like, one, I've only had a conversation with one other person. I only had 2 mics. There was 5 guys. Yeah. How am I going to navigate this fucking podcast to where we're talking about shit that makes a difference and that people are going to, you know, prescribe to and really kind of follow along? And man, I just, when it was done and I listened back to it and I was listening to all the gems, I was just like, oh my God, this is so incredible.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's serendipitous.
It really was. It really was when you think about, like, you were texting me that morning. I don't know if you remember, but I was getting ready to go meet Sharif, and you're like, yo, what are you up to this morning? And I was like, I'm going to Raleigh Raw to hang out with Sharif. And you're like, see you in a little bit. You know, it was just so crazy how everything came together. But again, I just think, you know, having these kind of conversations is just such an amazing part of expanding your mind to something that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah, totally. I love it. I've been tuning into all of them, and I appreciate you having me on here. Appreciate you asking me those questions, and
yeah,
I think it's just so cool that you're finding everyday men and women to come on and talk that have, you know, they're impressive in their own ways, but there's something, I think also, you know, there's something like healing in being able to kind of like reflect on your own story, because I think all of us starve to tell our own stories, you know, and at least for someone like me, now that I'm not in front of sales groups and I'm not constantly mentoring and teaching, I don't get to share, you know, a story that I feel like has a lot of lessons and stuff, and that could provide some perspective. So anytime I have an opportunity to have a platform where I can talk about it a bit, it's just like such a blessing. Makes me feel so good.
Yeah, I also think it makes you realize how much you've endured, and like the obstacles that you've had to overcome in your life. You seem to, when you break through an obstacle, you just want to break through that wall. You just want to get to the other side. You don't really wallow.
Right.
I mean, there is a little bit of wallowing, but you don't really pay too much attention. It's like, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And you really need to start to take the time, not you, but us,
In general,
people, humans in society, need to really start to take the time to dissect what it is that they're really doing. Because when you get through something that's traumatic that you then look back on when you tell your story, kind of like what you're doing here, you're just reveling in this like joy of like, man, I've had such a great ride, and you're only 24 years old, and look at all these things that you've done and overcome, and the failures that led to successes, and the lessons that you've learned has just created this incredible, beautiful human. And
Thanks.
until you're welcome, and until you really sit back and you tell this story to somebody else, and you see them react in a way that is like, "Whoa,
yeah,
you did that?" And
yeah.
Tell me more about this. And you're just like, "I've never even unpacked this luggage. It's just been boxed up inside my head and my heart for so long." And you're just like, you know, after my interview with Freddie, he was just like, man, I'm just so jacked up. I'm like, I'm thinking about like my childhood and how much I've overcome. And he's like, this has got me all, I'm smiling ear to ear. And it's like, I've really seen this theme in everybody that I've talked to when they start to tell their story. It's just, man, it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Very cool. Yeah.
So I guess we can finish off on... I know we talked a little bit about Valor, but I think I just want to say you've been such an instrumental part of my journey since moving here, of just understanding and learning all the things via social and marketing and just little nuances. And I just want to give my thanks and my gratitude to you and what you've been able to do to me. I mean, I know that we were texting and DMing each other hundreds of times when I was trying to get on this one program that you kind of shed some light on to me for. And it's like, when I really think back to all the people that have made an impact on my life and have really touched me in a beautiful way, you're definitely one of those people since I've moved here to Raleigh. And
It's
I'm
amazing,
just
man.
so grateful for your friendship, and really thankful to know who you are and to kind of be on the same journey and the same path. I'm a firm believer in rising tides raise all ships, and I think we're both helping each other.
Totally agree.
So where can these lovely humans find you?
Well, first of all, thank you, and ditto on a lot of what you said. And it's just so awesome reflecting on, like, I think one thing that I will never take for granted, and I just want people to hear me, is the relationships that you build. They're everything. Mm-hmm. When everything goes to shit, it's all about what relationships did you build.
Right.
Who's going to help you get out of that shit? You know? I mean, like, I'll just say this. Like, I just recently going through a breakup, and there was 5-6 guys that were checking on me daily, and you were one of them. You know? Just kind of like, hey man, how is everything? And for guys to have a support network like that is fucking huge, man. Most guys don't even have the balls to talk about their feelings in the first place. And second of all, have guys that are willing to put themselves out there to ask how you're doing. Is just, so thank you for that, because it every time would put a smile on my face when I knew someone was like thinking about my well-being. And it also, as a guy, makes you be like, stop being a little, and just like, let's go, man.
Right.
You were never like that, but just like whenever another grown man asks you how you're doing, like as a man, you want to be like, I'm fine. But when you're not doing fine, you want to do everything that it takes to get there.
Right.
And so that's why I loved, just getting checked on. So I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Where you can find me, Instagram _Vegas, Twitter CV Hamp. That's where I'm most active. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm here in Raleigh, and man, I'm just so open. If you want to email me and reach out to me personally, DMs is usually best. I definitely reply to all my emails. You can find me at vegas@valormedia.co. No com in that, just co.
Yeah.
They're running out of comms.
Yeah, they are.
And they're expensive.
They are very expensive. I even asked you, should I get a .co or should I get a .com? And you're like, how much is it? I was like, it's a lot more. Get a .com.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And can I say some final words?
You can. Yeah. It's all the floor is yours.
Thanks, man. Well, I just want. I think the biggest thing for me always has been. Every person's definition of happiness, in my opinion, is being able to live their life to the fullest, whatever that means. And so I'm in this incredible position where I am happy. Every morning I say 10 things that I'm grateful for. Every night I pray to God. And I'm at peace. I can sit with myself for like hours with silence. And that thought alone gives most people anxiety. I didn't know that. But most people can't sit with themselves in silence. And I'm not saying these things to brag. I'm saying these things to let you know that happiness is totally obtainable. It's not that I'm not going through enough trials and tribulations, because my bank account has been closer to zero than some of you guys would even dare to believe. I mean, there was points where 70% of my income was my rent, and I had a girlfriend, and I had no car. I was trying to Uber around. I was making like $1,200 a month. I mean, so freaking broke. And then everyone around me thinks I'm rich and successful. It's like such a, So, and the reason why I was able to be happy in all those times was because I was living my life to the fullest. And so I invite you, listener, to be aware of what it is that your heart calls you to do. There's 3 types of goals. There's A-type goals that are the goals that you know that you can accomplish, and that when you do accomplish them, you don't really even bat an eye. There's the goals that you think you can accomplish, and when you do accomplish them, no one celebrates but you. You give yourself a pat on the back because they weren't that big of a deal anyway. And then the C-type goals are the goals that scare the hell out of you, the purpose that you know that resides in your heart, but you know when you were to accomplish or get there or go after it, you'd be happier than ever. And most people ignore their C-types. Most people ignore them. They think that they're not possible. They won't go after them. They will give themselves every single reason as to why they can't because of all these things. And I'm telling you that you can, and I know that you hate me for saying that. But the second that you take personal responsibility, which I think is something that is missing in a lot of generations, not just mine, is just taking responsibility for your life, and that it's nobody else's fault but yours that you're not happy or that you're not where you want to be. It's no one else's fault. Sorry, it's not your parents' fault. It's not your ex's fault. It's not your boss's fault. It's your fault. It is. It is. And it's so frustrating to have that thought, to think that sometimes. Most people can't swallow that pill. But trust me, the second that you do, life changes. Life changes because now not only are you the perpetrator to your own demise, but you're also the reason why you're going to get out of it. And that's the most empowering belief and realization any one person can have, is that I'm responsible for this and I'm going to get myself out of this and I'm going to do it. I mean, there are people that accomplish incredible things just out of that one decision of being able to be personally responsible. And incredible is it's objective. It does, incredible to one person is completely different than what incredible is to another person. And the reason why I say that is because my C-type goal might be I want to be a politician and a global ambassador for technology. Okay, whatever. That's my crazy thing. Or I want to start this podcast in my brand. That's along my path. But for you, it might be I want to start a YouTube channel and just talk. Or I want to go after this job, or whatever it is for you. You know what it is. No one else knows what it is. You know what it is. And I encourage you to write it down. I encourage you to reverse engineer it. And I encourage you to take 1 hour to 2 hours doing something that's in light of whatever that thing that scares you is. Because if you can do an hour a day of that, your life just, 1 hour becomes 2, 2 hours become 3, 3 hours become, I need to find a way to supplement my income so I don't have to do my job so I can work on this for 8, 10 hours. Like, that's what happens. But you just have to be able to start with the walk, with the crawl. You got to be able to start with even the 30 minutes a day of working on the podcast or working on whatever it is. And I'm sure, Patrick, you can attest to this when you realized when you came to Raleigh with all the things that you wanted to do, probably scared you because you're like, shit, that's unlike anything I've ever done before. But you just started doing little things towards it. And you're like, using your resources, asking people, not being afraid to ask questions and leverage the resources and the connections and relationships that you'd created. You're doing research, you're making progress on a daily basis. And then you look back and now you're like, 10 recordings deep into a podcast and you're about to launch your brand. You have a sick logo, a website's going up, and you're like, oh shit, like all the things I was terrified of, I'm doing them.
It's happening.
Yeah. And it's because you took action on it. You probably wrote it down at some point. Mm-hmm. You started doing it. So I just want everyone to live a life like that, man. I don't think anyone should live a life where they feel like they're unhappy and like out of luck. It's totally possible, man. And some people love hearing that. It's inspiring. Some people hate that message because it's la, but it's like, whatever, man. If you want to live in your box, it's fine, but I'm opening the box for you. And I just hope that it inspires one person. So I wanted to say that.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. Well, I think we did it. So I appreciate everybody sticking around and listening in. And what I want you to do for a moment is, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, go ahead on iTunes and leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought. Give me some 5 stars. Let me know what you think. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. And until next time, I appreciate you tuning in to Just a Recording Podcast. Thanks, everybody.